What is going on, YouTube? So today I'm going to break down the production of my song Sellout. I'm super happy with how this song turned out. It's like similar to Sting. It's like a really dense arrangement. There's a lot of different elements, a lot of things happening, like with a ton of vocal layers as well. So hopefully this video will give you some insight into why I made certain decisions as far as the composition, writing the parts, the arrangement, and just in general the production and the sounds and stuff like that. So and I'm gonna do another video after this on the mixdown. If you've been following my channel at all, you know that I break down these videos into I have one for mixdown and then one for the production. So I usually lead with the production one. So this is that. And yeah, let me just play the song just to give you guys an idea. Cool, so I kind of just played the most epic part of the song that has all the different elements. So let's start with the vocals. So when I did Keep Your Time, I was just kind of finding my voice as far as my vocal layering. And I had 5 main vocals. If you go back and watch that video, you'll see that that's when I kind of got my vocal layering chops up a little bit in terms of how to arrange them and how to do different harmonies. So then when I got to Sting, I actually recorded Sellout and Sting kind of in the same 2-day span. And, the story behind this is that I actually had 2 days to record all the vocals to these songs without even having the option to go back, because this was right before COVID was going to cause our studio to shut down. I basically, didn't have an option as far as going back into the studio after that weekend was up, basically. So I just spent the weekend and just recorded as much as humanly possible as far as options for harmonies, for different styles of singing, octave ups, falsettos, all that shit. So I recorded a lot of stuff, and then I comped it. It was 500 audio files, I want to say. I comped it all together. I ended up keeping most of it because I realized that layering vocals actually, even if you have the vocals a little bit mixed in the background, it still adds that texture. As long as you have things balanced out and you have that main kind of taking the forefront. And yeah, you can get really fancy with a lot of this stuff. So basically in the verse, a lot of what makes up my sound is kind of just a higher, more aggressive vocal kind of happening, in the verses and choruses.
So the devil outside's been getting me high. Guessing he heard I'm losing my mind.
So that's obviously your main, and then you have a low octave. There's a low octave on everything in this song.
So the devil outside's been getting me high. Guessing he heard I'm losing my mind.
So that's obviously, just a low octave. And, the way I explain this a little bit more in depth in Sting, but the way that I comp my vocals is I comp my vocals based on the feel of it and then just tune it or edit it later. But I have multiple main playlists, which kind of allows me to double up on certain things, double up on takes, but also have them be comped takes. So they're just created out of good performances, good sounding recordings, basically. That happens a lot more in the chorus, not so much in the verse. But yeah, and then on top of that, I have a harmony. I harmonize basically on everything.
So the devil outside's been getting me high.
And I do a lot of fifths and fifths and going to the 1 and the 5 a lot, because I find that the 1 and the 5 are pretty much universally that with my style of production, my style of writing is very, very pop centric, I want to say. So when I do the root and the fifth on my harmonies, it always sounds super poppy and harmonic. So
the devil outside's been getting me high.
So there's some,
Sing me out for some kind of fight.
you can kind of see that the harmonies are written not necessarily in moving by thirds, but by what works with what's underneath in the chord progression. The chord progression for this song for 80% of the song is just a minor 2 to a major 4 to a 1 to a 5. So to a major 1 to a major 5, yeah. So, I write my harmonies kind of with the chord progression in mind because, like, what I do, I was actually writing a lot of these harmonies with an acoustic guitar with the vocal because I actually write my harmonies like in the recording session, like while I'm actually like about to track it. Because what I find is that I can write harmonies better with my voice when I'm actually like, in the studio listening to the lead vocal, because when I sing it with my voice, I can actually hear where there might be some dissonance or when I'm harmonizing a note that is not part of the chord that is underneath in the arrangement in the chord progression. So that's usually why I actually like, write in the studio with the lead vocal there for me to use as kind of a guide. But anyway, so that's pretty much the gist of what makes up. I got some doubles here, like for example, like I have a couple of doubles happening here and a couple of whispery tracks happening,
I'm hungry as it is.
and obviously like there's like a fuck ton of reverb on just that one section. Same thing with this section.
Cross me, make me rich.
Yeah, so that's huge. And then after that, I do have, while I'm not going to spend too much time on like the verse and all that shit, because the chorus is really kind of like where the meat of the vocal production is, or at least like, the most intense part. But I do have some like,
Take me out for some kind of fight.
you know what I mean? Like just a couple years like happening that are just super panned and super in the background.
Guessing me out for some kind of fight.
You know what I mean? So can I mute the rest of my vocal tracks, please? I mean, you know what it sounds like. Here's another section.
Cross me.
Yeah, so that gives you an idea of kind of like, I didn't go crazy on the ad-libs, but I did do some fun stuff. And I've never done like ad-libs before. I was in a pop punk band. I never gave a fuck about trying to do ad-libs, you know what I mean? I thought that was like a hip hop thing, but you can actually do ad-libs in pop and it'll actually add a lot of energy, like more energy than you think, because like when you're recording ad-libs, you're just like, this is dumb, bro. Like this is not me. I mean, at least that's how I felt. And then when I heard it in the mix, you put like reverb and delay on it and shit, you're just like, wait, this takes the energy up a notch. So, I mean, I would recommend trying it if you're on the fence about, like, if you think you suck at ad-libs, like, you probably do. But the way that I record ad-libs is I just have fun, man. I just like go into the booth and just like do a whole take of the whole song, a whole 3.5 minute take. And then I actually write my ad-libs by doing a bunch of takes and then hearing what I like and then listening back and being like, ooh, that worked there. Let me refine that a little bit. Let me turn this into a melody. That's what happens a lot. Like in this second verse here, there's an entirely other melody happening. Like, let me turn the piano off so that you can hear it. So like, for example, like in the verse, I wrote an entire new melody underneath that's panned a little bit to the right. And then this next part. So like you wouldn't really notice that, but like you can kind of hear it in the background of like, the arrangement as a whole. Like when you hear it, it just adds a little bit of interest to the sides. It's like pretty low in the mix, but like
Covered in scars and wasted my youth under the stars in search of the truth, I guess. So bars and basements will do. Don't pay me till I bleed. But the further I get from anguish and dirt, I start to regret the angle I worked in. Yes, the day they told me my worth.
Like you can hear it because it's panned so far to the left. Like you can hear it and add something that you can kind of like pay attention to and listen to, even though it's like, it's almost like distracting, but it's not really because it really fits in terms of like spatially, like it's all the way to the left, so it's like out of the way. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of like a byproduct of just spending time just recording different shit on an ad-lib track in the studio and just being like, it's like improv, you know what I mean? It's improv, and then you end up picking something that works. Let's talk about this chorus section. So the last chorus, the most epic chorus part, the reason this is so epic is because it's like a billion it's like a stupid amount of vocal takes. So I have these two mains that I, in certain other sections of the, of the hook, I basically just have it so that, some of them are in the center and then some of them are just like for example, like I have two happening and then I have one to kind of like add that contrast, like in the first and the second hook.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless
So
shit.
it's like two.
Run it up high, covered in
And then
grit.
one. So there's two.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick,
And then one.
maybe I'll write some pointless
And
shit.
two.
Run it up high, covered in
and then one.
Fuck it, I'll die a narcissist.
You know what I mean? So I chose not to have both of them happening all the time. But on the last chorus, you know, it was like just go as hard as humanly possible. So the last chorus, it's like,
maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit. Run it up high, covered in grit. Fuck it, I'll die a narcissist. Anything goes.
Yeah, so you can hear that, like, you know, you have like two, you know, I do this on pretty much all my songs, like especially Keep Your Time. The vocal like feel in this song is most comparable to like, you know, that in Keep Your Time, I'd say. So like you got your two kind of mains, your two like doubled up like aggressive vocals that are kind of just like in the center but panned a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, and that kind of adds a little bit of space to it, as well as a little more like beef because it's two vocal takes. And then I have on top of that, I have a low end kind of whispery. I broke this up into two things. Like I have a few different like ways that I recorded the lower octave. I recorded it with a whisper on one. So basically,
maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick.
It's really whispery, right? It's like meh, you know. And then I have one obviously to the right of it, to the right side.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit. Run it up high, covered in grit. Fuck it, I'll die a narcissist.
So, right, that's one texture, one octave down texture. And then I have another one that's basically not a whisper. It's like just regular.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
You wouldn't think that when you hear it, but like when you stick the whisper, when you stack a whisper, like a whispery, breathy kind of take with a normal, like lower, just like full voice take, then you just get like a super full sound.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
You know what I mean? And they're all panned, they're spread out super far. So it's like you have like a double layered texture that's spread out. And then you have your two mains, and already this is what it sounds like.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
You know what I mean? So already it's like, okay, there's a lot to work with here. And then let's bring our harmonies into the picture. And here are my harmonies. Here's what I try to do 3 harmonies on my hooks just because I found that is like so juicy if I can get away with it, especially if the top line is like a smaller number of like scale degrees. If it's like between the 1 and the 5 as far as like do re mi fa sol, like if it's between those notes, it's really easy. It's easier than you think to write 3 harmony lines because you can have one that's kind of like following the third or whatever, or certain notes, and then you can have one that's kind of like floating around the 1 and the 5 based on when the lead melody is not on the 1 and the 5. It's kind of complicated. I might do another breakdown later on how I actually go about writing my harmonies, but like just to give you an idea, here's what it sounds like.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
That's a lot of like 1-5, nah, 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 nah. You know what I mean? It's like 1-5, like, you know, it's like just like 1-5 land. So like there's that, and then with the main one, it sounds like this.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
Honestly, like that's not even like the best example because there's a major second in there, which is kind of weird, kind of annoying. That still gives you an idea of like how I go about writing my harmonies, but anyway.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick.
I have this second harmony here.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit. Run it up high, covered in grit.
Same idea, it's just like root 5 land, and then when you put these two harmonies together,
maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
And then when you put that with the lead,
maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit. Run it up high, covered in grit. Fuck it, I'll die a narcissist. Anything goes, everything's fine. Everyone knows my life's a lie. Gather.
All right, so here's the thing. Like I low-key fucked up, and like it looks like I cut out this harmony part from this last part of like the phrase because of the dissonance between the major seconds, and I literally just like forgot to do it here. I didn't notice in the arrangement, and the arrangement sounds fire like as a whole, so like it's not a big deal, but this will give you a clearer picture of like my actual strategy behind it. So like I have these harmonies happening, and then you can only get away with using 3 harmonies for like so long if your top line is moving around a lot. So like here it was a little bit dissonant as far as like this harmony in particular working with the lead because of those major seconds. So
anything goes, everything's fine.
Like that's all money, you know what I mean? And then
Everyone knows my life's a lie. Get
this is the only one that worked with the lead, this harmony right here.
my life's a lie. Get
So yeah, I kept that and then, you know, muted the other one. And then the whole chorus is like that. So like if you go to the na-nas, it's like
na 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 na.
so you can kind of see like, you know, I have like multiple harmonies and then I have 3 harmonies in some points. Like I use 3 harmonies like where I could get away with it. And then I use 2 harmonies when it was like kind of a force. Like for example, like listen to this that I muted. Listen to this harmony. Listen to the harmony and then here's the part that I muted. That's obviously just thirds, but like I didn't like that. So like I'm like, you know, the typical way to harmonize is like you stack like thirds or major, minor, sixth, whatever, depending on like, you know, if you're doing a high harmony or a low harmony, whatever. But I don't always like that. I kind of just like to keep things as like, you know, epic and harmonic sounding as possible in terms of like the 1 and the 5. I don't know. It's just like my style of composition. So like when it comes to like harmonies and chords and stuff. So like I liked this one better. Actually, are these 2 of... Oh, it's just that these harmonies didn't work together and I chose between them. So like this one is like these together are just like tritone territory. Like no wonder that didn't work. Yeah, and then towards the end they're just like major seconds. So yeah, like I think that this comes back to the fact that I was just doing as much as I could in the studio and I figured I'd cut stuff out later. So that harmony was trash in the greater context of the song. So that's why I didn't choose that. The other thing that I want to mention is that in these ad-libs, I actually wrote kind of like a counter melody to the melody, and you will notice it immediately because like it's in the outro.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless
And it's just like panning from left to right.
Covered in grit, fuck it, I'll die a narcissist. Anything goes, everything's fine. Everyone knows my life.
And it's like on the offbeat, but it's like repeating. It's almost like call and response. So when you hear it in the mix, it's like
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit. Shut it up high, covered in grit, fuck it, I'll die a narcissist.
you know what I mean? So it's just like it's adding that little bit of extra texture, but like out it's like, bro, we've heard the chorus 3 times at this point. Give us something else. You know, the arrangement is thick as fuck. You know, the vocals are all there, the drums are all there, the elements are all there. But with the vocals, like we've heard it, bro. We've heard the chorus. Give us something else. So that's kind of why I added this extra thing in.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit. Shut it up high, covered in grit, fuck it, I'll die a narcissist.
You know what I mean? And also, you know, this comes back to kind of like what I did in Sting is what I like to do sometimes is I like to introduce shit from the outro in the intro, and it kind of gives you that kind of moment of like satisfying, like, oh yeah, like at the end, you know what I mean? So here it is in the intro.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
You know what I mean? So you can kind of hear it there, and you're kind of just like, yeah, like that's from the intro. Oh shit. You know, so it's kind of like coming full circle towards the end. So that is pretty much it for the vocal arrangement portion of this. And yeah, other than that, I think I just have like certain parts that kind of like repeat, or not certain parts that repeat. I have certain ad-libs here and there.
Right, stick, shit,
Yeah.
high, grit, narcissist.
So that's pretty much like, you know, I got some ad-libs happening in there and in that second chorus. And one thing that I think is really worth mentioning is this bridge section because of the fact that like the bridge section. So I'm just going to stack on the layers just so that you can hear like, you know, the arrangement of this, like the yeahs, like this like funny. This part is kind of funny to me, but like one in the center, one to the left, one to the right, another one somewhere. Another one. I don't know. There's like 8 layers. There's like stupid layers. Like that's 8 layers. And then on top of that, you have your harmony. So like, And then harmony 2.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll.
And then you got ad-libs. You know, there's like, oh, yeah. Like that's literally just the ad-libs. And then you have another counter, you have like another melody on top of that that's doing this little thing right here. It kind of like I made this melody while I was writing the ad-libs, and I kind of like wrote this part and kind of like refined it a little bit, and then I harmonized on top of that. So like I'll like write parts and then harmonize them to make them seem like even more intentional, like that extra added layer of like intentionality. Like, no, I didn't just riff this, like I wrote it, you know what I mean? And I do that by kind of just adding harmonies onto it. And then of course the classic, just yeah. I picked between like 12, and that was the most like you know. So that's that's the one. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the vocals. I don't really think there's anything else to go into other than maybe the fact that I like filtered some things with an EQ, but that's more of like a mix thing. So one thing I forgot to mention about the vocals is it does have this little thing that happens that I think one of my favorite things about this production is that I have these other vocals that are really affected and really like delayed and shit. So they're like these ones. And that's literally me running the lead vocal through like a delay pedal. So let me actually see if I can pull that up. Here it is. This guy right here. And then an EQ and then the repeater, so it's like just like a delay basically on it, and that's how I got this like crazy ridiculous like it quite literally sounds like you're running a vocal through a guitar. Like it sounds like if a vocal was a guitar, and it's because I'm running it through a tube screamer. Yeah, and then when you hear it in the mix, it is in my opinion what bridges the chorus and the post chorus, because listen to it. You know what I mean? You can hear it, like it repeats that line, and you're just like, oh, okay, now we're in the post-chorus, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I like. But yeah, so after that, now I've covered the vocals, everything about the vocals. So let's talk about first things first. I wrote this riff dumb long ago. I wrote the riff on the piano when I was legit like 18, like mad long ago, like 2012. So this is really just a contact library. This is the Giant. So like, but what really gives this piano sound what it has is, hold up, let me just loop a section. So really what's giving this piano the sound is the fact that I have it kind of like on hard. You know what I mean? The tone is really hard. The dynamic range is a lot. And that's like, so the difference between those hard hits and those low hits are kind of a lot because of the fact that I have that dynamic range. It's the overtones. So that is why the piano sounds the way that it sounds, is because I have these overtones up, and it kind of gives, it's almost like it creates an organ underneath the piano, because listen to like when I crank it. You know what I mean? It's almost like I have a rock organ happening underneath the piano. So yeah, that's why this piano sounds so bright and so shimmery, is because I turned the overtones up there. And then, you know, I did obviously a bunch of other stuff to make it super pop sounding. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the piano, other than like, you know, mix things, which I'll get into later. And then I have a few different things here. So I was a huge fan of like the key/piano sound on Raise Your Weapon by Deadmau5. So I was really trying to get that, and the way that I did that is I layered a piano going through a filter, like a really like warm piano. This is just the Giant, but I think it's running through a filter and it has a different kind of tone to it. So there's that on top of this Serum electric piano. you know, that's super warm sounding. So when I add that with this piano, you know, it's pretty warm and the sounds kind of blend into each other. And then I have this massive piano, which is just like kind of a pad, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a lower pad. It's like an octave down from the Serum one. So these are the Serum and the Massive together. And then with the piano, and the piano is adding that piano texture that gives you the impression that it's a piano. But those lower pads are giving you that kind of like warmer sound to it. So that's really all it is, man. It's just layering sounds, you know, and getting the sound that you want through layering sounds. So yeah, that's it for the piano. The strings are literally just contact libraries. I don't really feel the need to go into them. Yeah, so that's just like contact libraries. Aside from that, I have several guitars happening in the song. So I have one guitar that's a little bit more low key, and it's just kind of like in the verse and in the intro. Literally just like me playing, like finger picking. It's not even in time, but like me finger picking, you know, some arpeggiated chords. And then the cool thing that I have that like guitar wise is this shit. You can see it's quantized to all hell. So what this is, it's a left and a right that are identical. I just kind of wrote this riff, right? Doubled it up, added this kind of like 1/5 harmony that I do to everything. Just in the center. And then when you put that stuff together, it's the delay that gives it the sound that it has, because without the delay, let me just expose myself real quick. I did not actually pick that. It's a delay. So the delay is kind of what gives it that kind of like Angels and Airwaves sound, which I'm a huge fan of. So then when you hear the hook,
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit. Running up high, covered in grit.
like that guitar is clearly like the main element happening in the hook, other than like, you know, the vocals. You know, that guitar kind of carries the hook, and doubling your guitars and painting them left and right. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Like that's, you have to do that. You have to. I don't care what anyone says. Like it's gonna sound better most of the time if you do that. But yeah, so strings, guitars, all that's good. Let's talk about this silence sound. So there's a ridiculously loud silence sound here, and by accident I automated the octave up instead of some other shit, but it just ended up sounding so cool, so I kept it. But this is silent. It's basically just like, hold on. It's basically just, you know, a saw wave, another saw wave, a square wave with some white noise. And that's kind of how you get this sound. So it's super lush sounding because it just has like, you know, a little bit of like detune to it, and just you know, some of these are an octave down, some of these are an octave up. So the way that you get this sound is just by having like a stupid amount of waveforms, basically. But yeah, like literally just silent. Yeah, it's literally just like silent with like a ton of reverb on it. And the cool thing that I did is that I low-key, like by accident, automated the octave up in this section, and that's how I ended up getting this part. And that was completely by accident. And then after I heard it, I was like, nope, that's part of the song now. Like, has that ever happened to you? Where you do something by accident and you're just like, wait, that's actually like better than something I would have come up with on my own. And then you keep it in the song and it just sounds like. You know what I mean? Like, and you're just like, wait, that's it though. You know, I muted the kick, by the way, because the kick was, I automated it on and off, and so it wasn't letting me solo. I use this in my Misanthrope remix actually, but it's literally just like this. I think it's like, yeah, what gives this its sound is the portamento. So like that's the portamento is like pretty long. It's like 143. Like you can make it stupid long, like, you know what I mean? And it's not gonna sound good, but like, yeah, adding this sort of like portamento, that's how you get that kind of like slidey sound. And then, you know, there's obviously a filter to it. Filters everything. I go into this in all my other videos, but like basically all you got to do is just put an envelope and map it to the cutoff on the filter. And then the filter kind of like closes in on the sound, you know, closes in on the high frequencies. And that's how you get that sound there. So, but yeah, like when I stack that bass on top of the Serum, it just kind of like works really well. So yeah. And then I have this other sound here. So this was one of my favorite sounds that I think I've ever made. So I have this like Serum attacky thing that happens kind of earlier in the song. That's basically just like, that's just, I think, this preset with a ton of distortion and just some multi-band compression. Yeah. And then that sound is cool, but what I really enjoy was this sound. I use this in my Caligula remix, and I promised that I was going to go over it more in depth because it came up later in other productions. So here it is. So what it is this kind of like, let me just solo the outro because that's the only section that it's. So what this is, so I was actually inspired by the song like Numb by Linkin Park. And that's how I actually got the idea to use this, to like try to synthesize this sound. So the closest that I could get was by, so I'm going to go down this like kind of plug-in chain. I'm going to take the filters off and the delay off and everything. So I started off with this. And I think that's this cliche doot. I think I must have modified this preset a little bit. It's super attacky. This is the same exact riff as the guitar, you know, so that's basically kind of like where I got the writing from, is like I wrote this on the guitar and then moved it over here. Then I put Trash on it to give it some distortion. You know what I mean? Trash fucks it up. And then Magneto to add even more to it and just distort the crap out of it. And then I add an EQ here just to take down some of that low end because it's unnecessary. And then I add Neutron. Neutron really is transient shaving. So I'm bringing down the attack a little bit because it was a little crazy, and I'm also bringing down the sustain by like a lot. Yeah, so I'm also compressing it very slightly and adding an exciter to the top end, I guess. You know, which probably more so applies in the verse section because I have it filtered in the rest of the song. But yeah, so the trick to this sound, you know, beyond the sound itself, is adding distortion, and then you'll see I have a delay here, which really gives it that extra like level of depth. And it's a filter delay. It's really filtered. It's like I filter at 200 and then at like 800. So there's only a little bit of that getting through, but it's really attacky. What is getting through is really attacky and creating that sort of like rhythm on the sides. And then after that, here's the key, is this band pass. So I'm only letting in the mid-range. And it sounds fantastic with just the mid-range, but the fact that I'm letting in just the mid-range, it gets rid of that like really harsh attack. And it also, I also have a mid-side EQ just scooping out certain areas in the mids where I thought, you know, it might conflict with the vocals very, very slightly. Yeah, like when you have a band pass, like it really cuts through the mix and it doesn't get in the way of anything else. So, you know, when you hear it in the mix, you can still kind of hear it, but the arrangement here is so dense that you don't want that to like conflict with anything really. So when you hear it in the mix, you know what I mean? Like, it's really just that attack and the like tones themselves that are poking through, and you don't really hear that extra top end or any unnecessary low end. And that's thanks to like, you know, putting it through a band pass. So it's like you got to like pick your battles when it comes to like what instruments get what frequencies, and being mindful of like, you know, the mid-range and you know, putting stuff in the mid-range but also not cluttering the rest of the mix is definitely crucial. So that was kind of like my choices behind like, you know, putting that through the filter that I put it through. Yeah. And yeah, I love that sound. And then, okay, so other than that, I do have like a low pad in certain sections. Not worth going into. Actually, whoa, that sounds kind of dope. Yeah, this kind of just added to the strings a little bit. Yeah, so that was just adding a little bit more as far as like the low end is concerned. And it's just a pad, but I have it kind of like short, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, and it kind of just has like a little bit of sustain to it. So the other sound that's really cool, actually, like I produced this song a while ago and I had, you know, a lot of different sounds as far as like older sounds that like didn't really work, but one thing that I was really going for was kind of like a whistly sound, and I wanted it to kind of like follow that na 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 na. Like I wanted to follow that shit a little bit. So I basically just have. So yeah, like that's basically just like a sampler with a submarine sound, and I think it's going through a filter, and that's kind of how I have this. You know, here's the first one, and here's the second one. So the second one obviously has a little bit more attack to it, and the way that I kind of get this sound is through like, you know, distorting it and adding delay and basically all the similar stuff to like, you know, the first thing, you know, just similar stuff to that like numb arpeggiated thing. So I'll go in that. I'll go a little bit more in depth in the mix section, but this is what it sounds like, you know, in the mix.
Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll stick, maybe I'll write some pointless shit.
So again, it's really mid-rangey and it's really kind of like in a space, so it kind of falls to the back a little bit, but it kind of like fits in terms of like the frequency spectrum because of the fact that it has like mainly like mid-range, you know, and it's in the background. So yeah, and then one really important synth that I have in this is this grit synth, and this grit synth is really important because it fills in the mid-range really heavily. So this synth is dope. It's really important to like fill in that lower mid-range, and that's exactly what the purpose here was. Things that are really important about it is that it has the portamento up, so the notes slide around a little bit. You know, they go dun, dun, you know what I mean, dun, and that's really kind of like where it gets a lot of its like, I don't know, juice from, in my opinion, is from that portamento sound. But the other thing about this that's really cool is that it has a delay on it, and the delay is on eighth note tuplet. I think that's a tuplet. Please don't murder me if I get this wrong, but like eighth note D, and that on synths is something that I preach all the time because like it's a really interesting rhythm, especially on synths like this, because when you listen to it, like let's switch it to like, you know, a regular eighth note. Like it's like, yeah, it's cool. It's like duh, 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 duh. You know what I mean? That's cool, but when you have it on this tuplet situation, that's way groovier, way groovier. It's night and day. So, you know, let me turn it up just so you can hear it. Like, you know, it's obviously filtered because if I let that top end in, it would just get so messy. So you got to filter it. But like, yeah, like you can see that, like, you know, that is a much more interesting rhythm here. And that's huge. Like that eighth note tuplet, like try that on anything percussive or anything that is considered like rhythm section material. But yeah, and then the other thing I did is I just have like, you know, I have it kind of this section right here. What's cool about that is that I have like my 808 that's like, you know, going in and out in just that one section. Like I have for my 808, like the reason why this part comes out so tight is because I have this like trance thing, this like trance gate on the 808 so that the gate is enabled when this section comes in, and instead of having to like create a short 808 and like, you know, have it just hitting those notes and being really tight, I can just throw this trance gate on it and automate it up, and the 808 as a result does this. You know what I mean? So it's like, just like, yeah. Yeah, so it just turns off there. And was that an artifact? I don't know. I'm going to ignore it. So the 808 is nothing special. The 808 is basically just like the 808 that I've used in all my other songs. So I'm not really going to go over that. Like it's 808 Warfare. That's pretty much all you need to know. And I mix it later using certain things, obviously, but like I'm also going to talk about that in the mix. So it's not worth going into right now. Okay, so moving on to the 808, or I mean past the 808, because I've used this 808 in all my songs. You can even see it says keep your time 808 on it. One thing that I do is I just have a short 808 in certain sections. Like this chorus specifically has like a shorter 808. Like a really short 808, because like it's really just hitting with the kick. And that grit synth that I was talking about, that's what's carrying that sort of like low end / mid range in that section. So now I'm going to bring the kick back, because now it's like time to go over the kick a little bit. So one thing that is cool is that I have just this reverse kick happening going into each part. I'm just adding a little bit more movement to the kicks and the percussion in general. So that's why that sounds cool, is because it has a reverse kick going into it. You know what I mean? So I love that. And then, you know, the kick is just a couple of kicks layered together. It's this one, body, top end, a little bit more body, a little bit more texture / like, you know, character. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the kick. And then the snare, I think, yeah, this is actually the exact same snare I use in Keep Your Time. So if you want a more detailed breakdown, I would just watch that. But one thing that I have differently here is that I have, like, you know, some drums that are really boomy. Like I have this really boomy drum here. You know what I mean? It's just a really kind of like boomy drum that kind of just adds that effect in certain sections. And then I have these affected snare claps. All they are is just me running it. Same thing as I think one of my other songs. I forget which one, but all I do basically is I just kind of like run this stuff through. I think it's Trash. I think that I might have printed that, or wait. Yeah, so all that I'm doing is I'm running those drums through Trash, and that's how I get them to sound so like distorted. Yeah. Okay, so aside from that, I have a crunchy snare just in certain sections of the song. And all that is several just samples layer on top of each other. And that's how I get that to just be like, you know, a bunch of layered claps. And then, yeah, same snare as Keep Your Time. So go watch the Keep Your Time video if you want to see kind of like the breakdown of that. And then I have a main hi-hat happening in a lot of the sections of the song, but then I have like an extra hi-hat happening. So like, here's my main hi-hat. Here's without the extra ones. Oh, that's because it's only in this section. So I have a main hi-hat that's just kind of just playing, you know, that like 909 sample that I always use. And then I have this extra hi-hat section here that's only happening in like, you know, the second half of some of the chorus sections, and basically like all it is it's basically just like, you know, a couple hats on the offbeat and a couple hats. It's actually not even that crazy. It's literally just like a couple, and then the thing is they're panned. So this one's panned a little bit that way. This one's panned a little bit closer, and this one's panned a little bit to the right, and this one's panned a little bit to the left. So it's literally just those like 3 samples, and I'm just like, let me see if I could just solo that. Yeah. It's just that open hat on the offbeat, and then those 3 other hi-hats just kind of like hitting on every single other beat. And then I combine pretty much everything at the end, and there's also a shaker happening. So that shaker adds another layer of like percussiveness to the drums. Yeah, and then one thing that I think I did here is that I have these drums on like a really fast roll. And that's why they sound so like almost like glitchy, is because they're on a really, they're hitting, but they're hitting on a really fast roll with some of these velocities down a little bit. Or actually, those are the snaps. So this is the snare. But it looks like I didn't actually do that there, but I'm like pretty convinced I did it in other sections. Hold on. There it is. All right, so I did in fact do the snare rolls here. And that's why it sounds like that, is because I have these like, you know, lower ones happening right after the main hit, like lower in velocity. And that's why it sounds so glitchy. You know what I mean? After that, I just have like, you know, certain reverse cymbals happening in places where it makes sense. Yeah, reverse cymbals are huge for like, you know, getting that next section to hit right. And then I wanted to fill in the space a little bit, so I added a hey here. Like, I love that. Yeah. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, like, I have a few different sounds that happen in certain other sections of the song, like risers and sounds that are just things I got off, like, you know, Serum or whatever, or Splice, I want to say. Cool thing about that pan noise is that I added auto pan onto that pan noise, and that's how I got it to, like, be a super panny, like, fluttery pan effect into the next part. Yeah. I think the only other thing I'll say is I have this like movie boom sound that really kind of just like, I'm a huge fan of using like as many cinematic effects as I can get away with in certain songs. So like here. So it's like just like just like an effect that I got off of Serum. So that's pretty much it. I mean, the one thing that I think really is the last thing that really makes the song pop is this kind of like sine wave fall here. Or I guess this like fall sound from Splice. Like this actually like really makes this very last post-chorus hit as hard as it possibly can. And I'm not a sound designer, I didn't make that sound, but like it's super dope just to like add spice to those like really impactful parts. Yeah, without it, it's like, it's good, but it's not the same. Like, it's cool. And part of the reason why it's cool is because, like, you know, the hi-hat, obviously, or that like 808, like, crash really does it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I just have, like, these, like, dumb seagull noises at the end because, I don't know, this was the vibe. I can't explain why, but that was the vibe at the end. You couldn't convince me otherwise. I don't know. It just seemed really fitting. But anyway, I guess the last thing, I lied. Like, there's one more thing. I do have this like sine wave that comes in certain sections, like in the. This is literally just like a sine wave fall with the resonance is like all the way up. That's kind of like what gives it that sound. And then I have like a bunch of delays on it. Yeah. Or I guess, yeah, there's a bunch of delay on the patch itself. You can't hear it as well, but I wanted it lower in the mix. Yeah. It's also muted here because, you know, I wanted this part to come in clean, so I didn't want those delays to be left over and cluttering up the beginning of the chorus anyway. Yeah, that is pretty much it. That is pretty much it for the production of this song. Yeah, so that is it for this, you know, walkthrough production of my song Sellout. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you got something out of this, you know, in terms of like, you know, how I had all these different elements like fit together, and also keeping the mix in mind in terms of like, you know, having some stuff in the mid-range and some stuff in the top end and in the background and with reverb. So I hope this was helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. And, you know, definitely, you know, most importantly, please check out the song and let me know what you think, because like, you know, big reason why I do these videos is because obviously to like shed light on like my production decisions, but also because like I want to share my music with people, and that's a big part of like, you know, why I make it in the first place. So yeah, please check it out. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, you know, please comment, like, subscribe, because like I'm trying to make this YouTube channel more of a thing, you know, as well as, you know, my music. So I'm trying to kind of like make this YouTube channel be like another part of like, you know, my music brand in general. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you on the next one, and thanks for watching.